We do not owe politeness to people who cross our boundaries. We do not owe politeness to people who cross our boundaries. We do not have to reply to people who cross our boundaries. We're allowed to say no. We're allowed to stop a conversation. I'm speaking here of a concept called boundaries, which is a safe space that we're allowed to have around ourselves and that other people are allowed to have around themselves as well. And so I'm specifically speaking of something that kind of triggered me in my YouTube comments that I worked on with my therapist in my last session around boundaries. And I think boundaries are something that we have to learn as adults, because as children, most of us are not taught about boundaries because we have to do what we're told, usually by our parents, by the teachers. Wherever we go, we're told what we have to do. And I don't think a lot of us were modeled healthy boundaries. And we, as kids, were not really allowed to say no, right? So it's something that we really have to develop as adults. And a lot of us, whether you're a people pleaser, which some of people might be, or whether we were raised to be polite, like I was, I think I had the tendency that I thought I had to reply. Or sometimes I would just, if a guy would message me in a way I didn't like, I might say, oh, you're such a loser, like to push him away. But there's a more powerful way to deal with boundaries, and that's internally feeling safe. And even like, imagine just like someone says something you don't like, you just push them away and you just do this with your arms and create like a safe space around yourself. But we actually went through an inner child thing. And this example of boundaries, so I'm going to share with you what I did. I had these comments are a really good example. I had one before the therapy and one after. So let's go into it. So the morning of my therapy session last week, I was sharing with her something that had really upset me. And it was a gentleman. He had left a comment on one of my videos asking for the name of my Just for Fans page. I don't publish that on here because it's a separate business and I'm not trying to get new subscribers, but if someone asks, I will tell them. So I replied, email me and I'll let you know. So he emailed me. I emailed him back the name of my Just for Fans page. And he emailed me back and said he had difficulty logging on. Actually, it turned out that he had never subscribed, so he didn't have difficulty logging in. I think he had difficulty subscribing, and I don't know if that's true or not. At this point, I don't know, but sometimes people have told me that they're not able to make an account. And that has to do with their bank having like an extra secure fraud detection department. So what these people usually have to do is call their bank and say, just allow this particular vendor to debit my account for this. This is a legitimate purchase. But, and I also told him that he could, so I replied and I said, you can email support at Just for Fans. They're super good with their support. Oh my God, they're just so on point. So now I've already emailed him twice. First, I emailed him the name of the site. Now I emailed him that he could contact support at Just for Fans. But that wasn't enough. Now he emails me back and he wants to know, what kind of content do I have? Do I have this or this or this? And he names all these sexual things. And I was getting really annoyed. I don't remember what I said now. I think I deleted the whole thing. And, because people who sign up, I don't have to sell them on it. Like people just sign up. I don't even know who they are. Like people just come in and sign up. And I don't have to like market for it or talk people into it or tell them what's on there. I was getting really annoyed, but somehow I felt compelled like I had to answer him. That's the point I'm trying to make here. I felt compelled that I had to answer. I felt very intrusive. I felt like I had to push him away. I was feeling guarded and angry, but I still felt compelled to reply. Then he emailed me something else, and I think I just said, "You're such a waste of time. You're such a loser." I don't even know what I said, but it was like, "You're a loser," or something to that effect. And then I just blocked him. And I was very upset about the interaction, actually, because I don't like to get upset. I'm like, how did I let this guy get to me? And so I mentioned it in my therapy session. Now, it seems like a very small point, right? I'm like, she's going to think that this is like a nothing, me getting upset over some YouTube comment guy. But it wasn't a nothing. It had to do with boundaries. So we did this boundary work, and I started to realize that, well, I don't have to reply to men who are violating my boundaries. I'm not obligated to reply, and I guess as a child growing up, I always had to reply to adults. I had to be polite. And she also pointed out that we're taught as women that we must be polite, that we must be nice, and we don't always just go by what feels right or what is our internal boundary. Sometimes we just bypass it altogether because we're in our head thinking, I got to be nice. I need to answer this question. Well, I don't have to answer the question. I don't have to reply to anyone. Once they're being rude to me and violating my boundaries, it's okay to ghost them. I thought, I can't ghost people. I'm not going to be a person that ghosts people. I have to close things out. If I'm mad at them, I have to let them know. Like, I had all this stuff that wasn't useful at all. Because if they're violating my boundary and I feel that, it's okay to just stop talking to them. But we did the inner child work around it and feeling safe and creating new beliefs. And then a couple days later, a similar comment happened. This is so great. So I started thinking, though, about, what would be a good way for me to frame my own boundary around comments or texts. And I told myself, my phone is for business. My phone is for scheduling appointments. So that became my new mantra rather than I must reply to everyone, like it was this internal thing. So I had another comment similar to that a couple days after that, so last week. And he said, oh my God, it was some young guy again, I really want to talk to you. And I said, you can leave your question in the comments. He said, no, I can't. It's public. There's something, I really need to. I think he wanted something sexual. So I said, I didn't send him my email this time. I said, you can ask me questions on my Just for Fans. You can make an account at Just for Fans, and you can easily find me there. And that's all I said. I didn't feel compelled to email with him. I felt so strong in my boundary. That's what I want to say. Like, it came naturally out of me. And I felt like I didn't anymore feel like, that's the other thing. When people would email or text me, emotionally, I felt in a one-down position, like they had power over me. And it came from being a little kid, feeling like I had to answer to my dad or had to give my dad a hug even when I didn't want to, because Persian fathers are very affectionate with their children. And I grew up in a very affectionate household. There was a lot of hugging and no physical violations at all, but just affectionate hugging. But sometimes I didn't want to hug him because I was playing, or maybe I was mad at him. And so I learned that I had to reply. And so when people would email or text me, I often honestly felt like I was in a powerless position. But after the therapy session, I didn't feel powerless anymore. I felt grounded in my boundaries. So I automatically just gave him that reply, and I felt very good about it. And I think that he just, I don't even know what he did. I don't even know what video the comment is on, if it's still there. I think it's still there. But now I just tell myself that I don't have to reply to everyone. The moment someone crosses my boundary, I can just disengage. I can just disengage. I don't have to reply. So that's just what I want to share with you guys, that this concept of boundaries is so, so important. And having the safe space in here, and especially when we're dealing with people that we don't know, if you're on a dating app or you're, on social media, ladies, and some guy contacts you and wants something from you, you do not have to reply. When you're firm in your boundaries, you can just ignore that person, block that person. But if you have a really strong reaction, that's your invitation to do some work around boundaries, because the way you know if there's some work to do is if the reaction is very strong in relation to the event. It's one thing to say, oh, this person's annoying, just another annoying person, versus I'm really upset, this person's really annoying. And I would get super upset about inappropriate texts or emails that men would send me, and I would get really flooded, and it wouldn't last more than like a half of a minute, but I would feel very flooded. And now, well, we'll see as I go through, but I had some really good experiences since then, last week, where I don't get flooded, where I feel like, okay, I think it was even her affirming that I don't have to reply to everyone. I don't have to reply to people who are rude to me. I don't have to reply to people who want something without giving. It's okay. And I think that so many times we're raised, especially, I don't know if it's just as women, that we have to be nice, that we have to be polite. But I don't have to be nice to people who are taking without giving, who want something from me without having given me anything. I don't have to reply to them. It's a boundary intrusion. I can just ignore them. And again, these people don't know about boundaries either, but that's not my problem. My responsibility is taking care of myself, and I don't want to get upset. I don't want to lash out at people. I was watching a video this morning, Howie, someone, the dating coach, I think, was being interviewed, and he's been doing a lot of inner child work with his therapist. He spent a lot of time, I think, processing some things that happened to him when he was little, doing inner child work. And the interviewer asked him, what is the most important skill in a relationship? And he said emotional regulation. And that he had talked to a friend of his who was a neuro doctor, neuroscientist, who'd done brain surgery on hundreds of people. And he also said emotional regulation is the most important skill. I don't know, he didn't say why, but emotional regulation is the most important skill. And I want to be able to, I don't want to have some person who sends me an email or a text upset me, It's one thing if I have a real problem with someone I know. So the whole boundary thing was super, super empowering. And I think especially if people grew up in homes where there were no boundaries, or you had to do what your parents said, no one cared what you wanted, or if you were emotionally abused or physically abused, violated, you may have to do a lot more work around boundaries, because you have the right to feel safe in your own body. You have the right to not have your boundaries intruded on. I just made a video earlier today about random men contacting me. This happens very rarely, calling me sweetie, or even sending a dick pic. Those are all boundary violations. And, feeling, it's annoying, right? But we don't have to engage with people like that. We can just block them. You do not owe anyone a reply. strangers. Now, in the case with friends, I do things differently around boundaries. I had a discussion recently with one of my friends around how we want to do our phone calls. So there I have a discussion, what works for you, what works for me, and we come to an agreement. That's how I do it with friends. And friends who are worth having are friends who want to work around boundaries and what works for you. They're, someone who says, well, this is the only way it's going to go for me. I don't care what you want. It's not someone I want as a friend. I've gone way beyond of trying to put up with, trying to be okay with, well, this person is my family member and, I should be nice to this person. No. I'm way beyond that now. I'm in my 60s. I spent a lot of time, a lot of years not understanding about boundaries. And now I don't want to put up with anyone who doesn't want to work on boundaries. And all it takes is saying, hey, I have a request. Can we do it this way? And I want to be around people who automatically already understand boundaries and understand about requests and working things out and making agreements that are respectful to everyone. And also, I only want to be around people who care how I feel and who have done their own work, especially around boundaries and kindness. So that is super important. And I don't think enough people talk about boundaries. But in order to have a boundary, we have to be really aware of our feelings and how we feel, because how will I know a boundary is violated if I'm just in my head and I'm disconnected from my body? So we have to trust our feelings, ladies. How do I feel? This doesn't feel good. If it doesn't feel good, it's a boundary violation. But if you get super triggered, it could be like a thing from childhood, to look into as well. But one thing for sure, if I tell someone I don't like this and they do it anyway, they are out. Whether they're texting or emailing me, they're just blocked. Or in real life, that never even happens to me anymore in real life. But start thinking about boundaries is my invitation for today. And a boundary is not a wall. It's not like, it's my boundary, stay out. It's like, a boundary is just like this soft space around you. If you can just imagine yourself in a safe bubble. It can even be a bubble of light if you want. It can be you can imagine yourself in surrounded by a bubble of light, or being in a see-through plastic shell thing. Or for me, I just imagine my arms around me, however you want. It's like your safe space. And when you can feel safe in your space, then it just gets easier to go through life. I even notice a lot of times in myself lately, when guys leave comments that aren't very nice to me, instead of getting annoyed and blocking them, I just kind of write LOL, it strikes me as funny. So that's just something I noticed after starting to work with this therapist, because it doesn't seem to trigger me anymore. You have to be nice to me. I'm I'm going to leave that comment up. That's kind of funny, and it might be interesting for other people to read what some people think. I don't know. I'm just kind of sharing my own journey here. Anyway, I have to get motivated to go to the gym. It's Sunday morning, and Sundays I don't have training. Saturdays is my day off. So Sundays I gotta drag myself in and motivate myself to go. And that's why I really like having a training appointment, because it forces me to be there, because otherwise I just drag and drag and drag, because getting there is the hardest part. The first few minutes are the hardest part. But if I don't go, then Monday's workout is going to be harder, because I won't have done my cardio, so I have to go so that Monday will go better. It's called playing it ahead. Thank you for watching my video on boundaries number 2.